I dare say that this bass line is more melodic than the actual vocal line. What's up, guys? Welcome back to Lone University. In this week's video, I'll be reacting and analyzing to Sledgehammer by the great Peter Gabriel with Mr. Tony Levin on bass. Tony Levin has been Peter Gabriel's bass player as far back as I really know and can remember. I know he played on the album So, when this was released back in the 80s. I think 86 this track came out, or that album. We're going to be watching a 2003 performance from Italy, and I've always loved this particular live performance. Peter just looks so dazzly, and they got the stage as a big circle in the middle of the arena, and it's just an entire vibe. If you've been enjoying this series, I really appreciate you watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff to help me in the algorithm, and you know, you've heard this in every YouTube video I've ever watched, I'm sure, so do those things. It is important, and let's get into it. Here's Sledgehammer. That is so sick. Just his jacket. Somebody's got to get me one of those. You can have a steam train. Okay, so the reason I wanted to do this video because I think this is just one of those staple songs in terms of the bass carries the melody. It really does. If you strip away the bass part for this song, let's go back and check out a little bit of this intro. And I want you to ignore the vocals, ignore all the other stuff. You know, there's 10 people on stage. Just listen to what the guitar part's doing. That's what I want you to focus on. Let's listen. Might be hard to hear. What the guitar part's doing is it's mixed in the back for a reason, and it's kind of like this on the studio recording as well, but it's very rhythmic. It's not really carrying any sort of chord progression. It's not really doing much other than providing some texture, and I know it kind of ebbs and flows the rest of the song, but the guitar part's really just kind of going... I can't quite make out exactly what it's doing, but I know it's mixed kind of in the background, and this bass part is kind of mixed in the forefront. So what I'm saying is this song, without that classic Sledgehammer bass line, that is the melody. And you'll notice that this bass line is sort of the melody with the vocals has a whole different thing going on. I dare say that this bass line is more melodic than the actual vocal line. It's kind of just staying in these three groupings of notes. You'll go back and listen to this opening line. You can have your... You can have a steam train. Staying real... If you just lay down your tracks. It's just kind of going between a couple notes, and then you've got that bass with the melody under it. That kind of stuff. This always stood out to me, and I think it's always considered one of the great bass lines for that reason. It carries the melody. And again, if the bass line wasn't there, I think this song would still have a lot of great elements, but it just supports the vocals in such an important way that, I don't know, there's just not a lot of pop songs that do this quite like this song, and that's why Sledgehammer is what it is. It's obviously one of Peter's most, one of his big hits. Let's talk a little bit about Tony's tone. Oh, I almost screwed Tony's tone. Tone's Tony. This particular video doesn't show Tony quite as much. You'll see a couple clips. It's very focused on Peter. But I do notice, I think he's using a Music Man, which is always kind of what he uses. It's kind of got an edit sort of filter on this video. I can't make out what it is. The control schematic right here, it just looks like a Stingray or something. I know Tony's played Ernie Ball basses for a long time. But what I want to say is that I think on the studio recording, he's using a fretless. And if you watch the 1987 version of this, kind of right when it came out, they're much younger. He's playing an Ernie Ball fretless. And that's one of the things that makes this bass line so vocal. It kind of has that voice timbre, and you can never recreate that song with a fretted bass. I've been trying to chase that for years, and I used to have a fretless, and I sold it, and I'm going to forever regret it. But when you kind of do those slides in and out of those notes, it kind of trills that C and C sharp right here. But on a fretless, it kind of sounds like a voice. But you can't, I mean, the frets make it snap from C to C sharp. So the best I could do it is kind of... And it just doesn't sound quite right. It doesn't appear he's using a fretless here. Maybe it has lines on it. This whole video really just never gets close enough for me to quite tell. But it kind of sounds like he does. And I think with a little bit of EQ and a lot of effects, you can kind of get that sound close. What I'm using here is just a little bit of a driven tone. I'm using an envelope filter just to kind of give it this. Obviously an octave pedal. He's using that, and I'm kind of going all the way to the bridge pickup to kind of make it cut a little more. Pulling down some treble to make it a little smoother. I'm kind of pushing the mids. It kind of has this old school just bridge pickup tone, heavily affected. But let's keep watching. If you just lay down your tracks, you can have an airplane flying. Just carrying the melody. If you bring your blue sky back, all you do is call me. I'll be anything you need. You can have a big dipper. Love the horns. All around the bends. You can have a bumper car bumping. Funny frame to pause this on. I remember seeing that. Still can't quite make out if the bass is fretless or not. I might never know watching this whole thing. But you'll notice when it goes into the pre-choruses and even the chorus, the bass stops playing that melody. It's going back to root notes, the chord changes, and really supporting, you know, the foundation of the piece, locking in with the drums more, letting the vocal melody just make sure nothing's in the way. You'll notice he kind of sticks to the verses for this because there's really no chord progression. I mean, it's kind of just an E flat. Again, you know, keys, guitar. That kind of thing. There's really not a moving chord progression. So it gives them the freedom to kind of go throughout that sort of E flat, sort of minor. It's kind of got a major third in there sometimes too, but then it does a little fill with the minor third. So bottom line, it's just kind of a loose E flat here in this verse. Kind of goes between F, F sharp, and G. So no chord progression allows that melody to really make a lot of sense. There's some youths that never rest. I wanna be Sledgehammer. Why don't you call my name? I wanna be. You'll notice he's kind of just hitting those hits. No melody, no moving bass line. And he'll put those little fills in between it to make sure to not get over the vocal. This is obviously like the chorus, the main catch of the song, the main hook. He's hitting the hits. Sledgehammer. And then he's kind of going. So it's important to kind of do those bass fills, get back out of the way when the most important part of the song, the vocal hook. And Tony just has a perfect marriage of this bass part and that vocal melody. Really good stuff. Sledgehammer. This can be my testimony. Vocal stop. He's going back up. Show me around your front page. Love that little break. Super important stuff. But The thing I want to point out with this bass melody, and I don't want to talk about it too much because it's very repetitive and it is the backbone of the song, but you know, if you have an opportunity to have a bass line that's like this, it's melodic, it really does a lot of gluing between the vocals, the drums, this is a perfect example. Establish that melody, and then you can just kind of do variations on it the whole song. You can change the fill, you can kind of change, you can put it on an upbeat for a couple bars, and he does all those little nuances throughout the song just to keep your ear tuned into it. Because if something is so repetitive, like I talked about in the last video, Symphony of Destruction, the guitar riff's going on, the bass part's changing under it, your ear now kind of tunes out the ostinato. Ostinato, once again, is like a repeating musical phrase that kind of goes into the background when things change around it. So if you do something exactly the same and other things are changing around it in the composition, your ear will kind of naturally tune it out. So a great way to kind of stay on the horizon of the forefront of the composition is keep that melody and just do little things that pop out, just like this bass fill in this break here. Check it out. It just kind of draws you back in. That stuff, important. How about the stage? I love it. I know a lot of artists have done the round thing where you're just right in the middle. When I saw Metallica a few years ago, I know they're pretty known for doing that, and just shows like that are great. Great for the artist. You can just interact 360 with everybody. It seems like a very efficient stage. Just super cool. I love the way this looks. Look at that. Awesome. Oh, that's probably the best shot we could really see so far of Tony right there. I can't see the headstock. I mean, it looks like an Ernie ball, that's for sure. I know it's an Ernie ball, just the control schematic. Looks like 3 tuners in one. But as far as fretless, it very well could be fret lines. I'm sure somebody knows. Please let me know. I should have done my research, but either way, he's got the tone pretty authentic to the original. And this is a good time to kind of talk about some other things that really make Tony Levin unique. I actually found out about him playing for Peter Gabriel long before, or long after I knew about him. I was living under a rock, I guess. I got into Dream Theater, and we've talked about this in the first video of this series. I got into Liquid Tension, and obviously that's how I found Tony Levin. And I just noticed he does this thing where he uses like drumsticks on his finger, just unorthodox things. I still don't have my head wrapped around that approach or sound very well. But I know he can tend to be pretty experimental. Obviously, Tony's touring right now with a group called Stickmen, which I actually played 2 shows with over the years. A cruise with Yes back in 2014. That's almost 10 years ago. Good God. And then we did a random Prague festival in Chicago one time. I think he was playing with Stickmen both times. I think Pat Mastelotto on drums, if I'm recalling, Marcus something on guitar. It's like a trio. It's just real out there prog music. But he uses his Chapman stick, and that's where I first found out about Tony. Chapman stick is like just a guitar bass combo with only played by 2-handed tapping. Has separate outputs for it's a really cool instrument, still on my bucket list to own. But when I found out about him playing with Peter Gabriel, I'm like, oh, I knew of Peter Gabriel, I just didn't know Tony played for him. So this is where he's doing more traditional stuff, but I can kind of hear those glimpses of his like unorthodox, really unique tones coming through, and that's something else I wanted to point it out. Look at everybody on stage. This is actually a great still shot to freeze frame on. You've got, I know I see a camera guy here, but you've obviously got a bass player, you got somebody playing guitar, you've got a keytar or a keyboard, you've got obviously a big drum set with all this auxiliary stuff, horns, backup vocals. Bass players have a hard time cutting through even with just guitar and drums. Like, how do you cut through this dense produced mix. There's just all kind of stuff going off. Horns, again, keys, pads. This tone is why. This tone could easily be just buried, flat, just boomy, but he really is driving home the effects. That octaver makes it really wide. It has an upper range and then still fulfills that bass range. It's kind of shaping the character of the tone, and I'm sure he's doing it in such a way where it's just perfectly fitting in this mix. But to be able to cut through this way in a mix that dense is something you got to spend a lot of time on. And I know this is a live performance that's mixed in post-production, but the point is that the tone is very different from everything going on in the rest of the piece. If I turned off the envelope filter, let me pull up this real quick. Okay, here's my effects thing. If I turned off this envelope filter, the pitch shift, and I just did a typical, just regular bass tone. That would never cut. But then I put it back to the way it was. Focusing on the bridge pickup helps to cut. The bridge pickup is a little nasal, a little more nasally, a little more mid-range focused. It kind of pulls some of the lows out. It'll help you cut through, kind of boost some of those mids back. Go to the bridge pickup. Oops, this way. And I put like those things back on, the octaver, the envelope filter, and suddenly it's more. So, if you're in a setting that's a really dense band, lots of things going on, think about how your tone is going to differentiate from everything else going on. And there's so many effects. I'm using a Line 6 Helix for this. There's a billion combinations probably on this thing of different amps and cabs and mic choices and effects and the order of the effects and ways you compress these effects. And then it's important. You have a lot of flexibility to develop a unique tone today. So something really important. So let's jump back into this video. Keep going. That jacket, it's awesome. See, it kind of goes back into, vocals cut out. We're kind of in this transition. Bass comes back out and it's kind of doing some frilly fill stuff. Back to the melody. Kind of back to the intro. Look at that choreograph. I love it. I got to watch that again. Watch Tony Levin when they say "shed my skin." Shed my skin. That's what's up. I'm not one of those people that's like, oh, pop music today is not what it's not used to be. I love modern music. I think there's so much creativity and just a explosion of new styles. But man, this like stuff back then is just amazing. It's just a vibe. Love it. It's entertainment. It's just pure entertainment. I love it. That's another thing I meant to mention. I'm not sure if he's using a pick. It's definitely possible. I mean, Tony, in just all the different things I've seen, he has a lot of different ways to pluck the string. Again, he uses these drumstick things. Let me throw a picture up there so you can see that. He uses the thumb pick. I think when I watched like a Liquid Tension thing, I saw that and was like really fascinated with it when I was first getting into that band. He's kind of doing this And he could easily be plucking it a little bit different. I've seen him play normal finger style, so I'm not sure if he's holding a pick, but you can kind of see what I'm talking about right here. Kind of look at the way his hand is held right there. It's hard to tell. I think I see a pick. Okay. And I know, you know, I see anybody else holding their hand like that, I'm like, oh, they're holding the pick. But Tony Levin has so many different ways of playing the bass. Like it could be anything. I'm just not sure. That's a cool view. Look at that stage. It's like where do you go? What am I supposed to do with my hands? I got 360 all the way around to look at. Yeah, right on. Well, there you have it. Sledgehammer by the amazing Peter Gabriel, with one of my favorite bass players as well. I feel like I've said that in all of these videos, but I'm starting off pretty heavy with guys I'm really partial to, and Tony Levin's one of them. I think he's just been a pioneer of different styles on bass. There's an old Bass Day jam from '99 on YouTube I watch a lot, where it's like Victor Wooten and John Patitucci and Billy Sheehan and Tony Levin, and they're all trading solos sort of in this free-flowing jam, and Tony comes in with a Chapman stick and is doing all these weird diminished chords. Flowing jam, and Tony comes in with a Chapman stick and is doing all these weird diminished chords, and everyone else is just ripping blues stuff, and I'm like, that's just classic Tony Levin. What can I say? Hell of a performance, and yeah, he's always had a really unique tone. I think he, you know, this is a guy who's really thinking about the composition. How can I just stand out, not be your typical bass player? Different techniques, just really interesting, unique tone. Even on the studio recording of this song, that tone just cuts through. And the couple times I've met him, I did a cruise with him, like I said, so I didn't spend a week with the guy, but I saw him frequently. Nicest guy ever. Gives you the time of day. And what can I say? Just have a ton of respect for Tony Levin. Thanks for watching. Make sure you're liked, comment, all that stuff I said earlier, and appreciate you watching. And we'll see you next time. Cheers.